horror movies, mutilation, decapitation, torture. Does that sound entertaining? More blood than a blood bank. Have we got your attention?
Welcome back, terrestrials, to the Quarantine Movie Reviews. In this episode, we're doing 2020's Mortuary Collection. It can be found on Shudder. The way the movie is set up, there's a funeral home and mortuary in the same old house, ran by a creepy old man, and he has a help wanted sign out. Some little blonde girl comes up, applies for the position, and he starts telling her stories. Now, the key thing here is he's telling her these stories that you see in the movie. Yeah. And the big thing that he says that I took note of that I really liked was not how they died, but why they died. And I think that that's a big thing. And I think that with this first story, I'm overlooking something. There's some sort of social commentary there that I'm just not seeing. Yeah. I see them later in the stories, but at this point, I didn't see it. So this one's an anthology. The stories don't have names, so Jerry made names for them all so that you know which ones we're talking about when we're talking about them. So let's kick it off with the first story.
Monster in the medicine cabinet. It's a monster in the goddamn medicine cabinet. That's basically the whole plot of that story. Yeah. What did you think of this one? How did you enjoy this one?
It was really short.
Yes.
The stories progressively get longer and longer. This one, it was interesting. It kicked off with a bang. Yeah. I enjoyed it. But again, it was really short. There wasn't a lot to it. And I think that the simplicity was enjoyable for me. Yeah. Because it's just some girl is a pickpocketer in about the 40s, it looks like, or, somewhere around that time, 40s, 50s. She goes into a bathroom to get all of the money out of the wallets and throw them away. And she opens the medicine cabinet for some reason, and a monster tries to eat her. Yeah. So that's the whole story.
Yeah. It's short, simple, to the point. I actually like of the stories, I think I enjoyed this one the most because of the simpleness of it. Yeah. There's a monster in the medicine cabinet. We're set up. She comes in, she turns the lights on, there's slam on the light switch. Yeah. She goes, she's a pickpocketer, which I felt was kind of just we need her to be in the bathroom for some reason. And she's basically acting with herself and this creature. Short, simple to the point, nice, good little monster story. It's probably, one of my tops. So,
okay. We move quickly into our next story, which is
Thinking with Your Dick.
Thinking with Your Dick.
This one is a reversal story of college frat guy who thinks with his dick, passes out condoms, gets a girl to come back to a frat party, doesn't use the condom, and slowly but surely he has a monster growing in him. He has the worst STD in the world. This one is fun. It's gappy, I would call it, where it's just wait a minute, what? Wait a minute, what? It's probably the most grossest one, where he gets fluid all over his frat brothers at one point because he's pregnant.
Yeah.
He goes to the doctor, and the doctor's put on the form pregnant.
Yeah.
Which I would find hilarious and stuff. I liked the undertone of this one. What did you think of it?
I think that this is the first time that they laid on the social commentary thick.
Mm-hmm.
The guys just think with their dick. They're reckless. They knock girls up and don't bother to call them or deal with them. And the role is reversed in there. He spends all night with this girl. She gets him pregnant, and he's forced to deal with it. He's forced to wear the girl's shoes in this case. And his dick explodes, and a baby comes out, and he dies.
Yeah.
So and the episode or the short story closes with the mom taking the baby upstairs, and you see that the girl has done this 20 times.
She likes
because
to fuck.
There's babies everywhere. She just throws it in the pile of babies and leaves the room. So
one bit of graphic nudity in this episode where how's it coming out? Same way it got in.
Yeah.
And there is, pretty cool effects. But
the next story, as he's continuously walking around this, mortuary funeral home, he's telling her story. This young,
potential employee.
Yeah, potential employee. There you go. Good one. He's telling her stories, and they're just progressively getting heavier and heavier. Which brings us to our next story in the movie, which was
Comatose wife.
Right. This one is a guy and a girl happily married. They, on their wedding day, the woman becomes catatonic. She doesn't move, she doesn't talk, she doesn't do anything for herself. And this man is forced to take care of her and provide for her, which is becoming increasingly harder as far as finances go. And it's just starting to wear on him year after year after year. So the doctor basically hands him some pills and says, look, this will take care of the problem. She won't wake up.
Yeah.
He gives her the pills. He immediately regrets it, pumps her stomach because she starts moving.
Yeah, she's waking up.
Yeah, she basically became coherent again momentarily. And then he freaks out and accidentally murders her. He drops her on a stone or steel statue that punctures her head. And so he has to now get rid of the body. So he shoves it in a trunk, drags it to the elevator, and it just gets weirder from there. I'll leave that one for you to see because the effects are kind of cheesy, but they're really cool. The idea is cool. So I'll leave that one.
Spoiler free for this one?
Yeah, spoiler free for that part of it. What did you think of this story?
I liked the setup of watching a guy exist around a woman that he loves who can never love him back, technically. He cooks food for her day in and day out. He learns how to cook different types of food, and he throws it in a blender, and he just spoon feeds it to her. So there's
I really like that, though.
Yeah, there's no enjoyment kind of feel. He talks to one of his neighbors, and he just doesn't like to use the elevator. He's always talking about, kind of that feeling of, I want to stay away from the elevator. This is a man we see experiencing the good life through imagery outside of what he could never do that because he has to take care of the woman that he loves. He could never, him and her could never experience this good food that he cooks because she's never going to say, wow, that was really tasty, you know? So we are watching a man slowly but surely basically just come to wit's end. And then, they end up in the elevator and spoiler free. So I enjoyed this one. This one was slow feeling. This one really took its time.
But I think that in that, it built his world crumbling very well.
Yeah.
It did move slow, but it just really built him just coming to the end of his road. Just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I think it had a purpose in being slow, but, I did really like that he would he learned to roll sushi, and he has this beautiful plate of sushi and sides and stuff. And you see him scrape it into a blender and blend it up and feed it to her like soup. I like that. That was an interesting thing.
He's cooking for enjoyment, whereas no, she just needs nutrients.
Right.
You just have to keep her alive, kind of deal. So, but you could see the deterioration. This could almost have been like two types of different kinds of story, where it is almost turned into like all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and he's mentally unstable. But they chose a different route, and the route they chose, it was good, but like I said, this one was just a little bit slower for me. So
I gotta say, this one was probably my favorite.
Yeah.
It is slow, but I think that it built to something grand. So, at this point, they're getting further after this story ends. They're getting further into the mortuary section of this funeral home, and it brings us to the last story of the movie, which would be
babysitter, not babysitter.
Yes. This one is basically, you see, this one is told by the girl, not the guy.
No.
And she's telling him her story that she says is even more twisted than any of the stories he's told. And she tells him a story of her babysitting a little boy, and the power goes out. The radio says that there's been a break in the asylum, and there's a terrible murderer on the loose that used to eat children and torture them and everything else. And you see that this killer comes to the house where she's babysitting and is trying to get to the kid, but she is doing everything in her power to fight him off.
Yeah.
And I guess
it's basically the classic plot of, there's a monster murderer out there trying to get the kid, and she's the babysitter, so she has to defend off the whole thing, like you said. And then there's
a twist
plot,
ending.
Plot twist.
And I guess we kind of have to leave that one for you.
Yeah, I would.
No, we're reviewing a movie. We can just fucking say it.
Well, because it would make more sense for when we have to talk about the wraparound story.
Well, the end of this story is the wraparound almost ending. So, all right. Essentially, you see that this girl is telling this story from the perspective of the babysitter. When the story ends, she says, I wasn't the babysitter, I was the killer.
Yeah.
And she, takes a tooth from a kid that they were holding a funeral for earlier in the day, and was basically like, I killed him, and this is my trophy, so on and so forth. And then the actual ending of the movie begins. And how does the end?
The wrapper, we learned that the funeral home operator, Mr. Krabs, or Kurgan from the Highlander, basically goes on this long speech and like is like the stories after the babysitter killer stabs him like "Rah!" and he starts bleeding yellow, and then he's like spooky, and books start falling off shelves, and
essentially the house claims her as the new mortician and sets him free, to which he just basically rests in peace at that point. He walks out of the house and dies. And then you see her in his position, essentially, and that's the Mortuary Collection. I hope we did a decent job at explaining that, because it was a little all over the map.
Yeah, these anthologies like this are always kind of really... They're difficult because there are so many stories that you have to explain.
Yeah.
The whole thing with the morgue or funeral home. It's not a morgue. It was a funeral home and stuff, but that's for another day. But the whole thing with that, it was a nice story. I did chuckle when it's like, you get to live forever in this shitty ass job, basically. It's just like, you could never leave this house, even though it's a pretty cool looking old house,
I'd have lived there.
Yeah, but you have to, do all of this stuff. Woo!
You have to hold funerals.
Yeah. Get good, quick! Could you imagine, like, the first funeral that she has to do, and she's just umming the whole time when she's up there? We're here today. Sorry, guys, this is my first day on the job. See, I stabbed the original owner, and now I'm eternally stuck in this forever.
Man, that would have been funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, no. What star rating do you give this?
I initially put down 2, but over the course of talking and stuff, I think I'll give it a 3. I think I was a little harsh on this. I think at the time I just wasn't in the mind frame for it. So I'll say 3. Okay.
I think that for me personally, I'll give it 3.5, because it's not a scary movie. It's a cute movie. It's a good movie. I think it's aimed more at teenagers, like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
A dick explodes in this. If they didn't have that, if they would have edited the dick exploding, like, it would have been a great one to, like, get kids into horror movies. But there's a dick explodes.
There's like it's like 0.4 seconds on the screen. So, but anyway,
watch this with your kids and tell us if they ask what the hell that was.
But I mean, for me, I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
I liked all the stories. The final twist was good. So I'm just going to give it a 3.5.
Yeah.
That's where I stand on it. All right. There you have it.
Yep.
The Mortuary Collection.